How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another Foundry video. Today we're going to be talking about a hot topic. We are going to be doing a little bit of a review of The Last of Us 2, albeit a bit late. There's a lot of opinions that are going to be tossed around in this video, and for those of you that may also be opinionated, drop them down in the comments. Anyways, I'm here with Jono. What are you up, man? What are you doing?
What's going on, guys? So drop some of them opinions down we want to discuss. We want some heavy arguments. But yeah, this is going to be our first game review here on the channel. We've never done one before, but we're going to kind of keep it to the close format of with the previous films that we've reviewed here on the channel. But Apex and I, we've kind of got some similar opinions and I guess thoughts about The Last of Us Part 2, but like you said, it's very controversial. People have, it's very heavy. People are very opinionated about this game, but I'm really excited to talk about it with you today because, I know a lot of our fans as well, like a lot of them are preferred PlayStation, like they prefer the PlayStation as their home console, and a lot of them are Last of Us fans and aren't really the fan of Last of Us Part 2. So it's just going to be interesting to see, to share that opinion with you guys and hear from you as well.
Yes, 100% agreed. And another thing is that if you differ from these opinions, that is absolutely, completely alright. We definitely have opinions on how things work, and if you have something differing, that's why we encourage you to share it respectfully, but still share it, because, just because we have a difference of opinion doesn't mean that we can't, share ideas or share, positives about the game as well, because there will be positives in the game as well.
Oh, yeah. I overwhelmingly, I think this is the one thing that, you and I differ quite a bit, is the takeaway from the game is that I enjoyed it for the most part. And how do you feel like at the end of the day? Do you think you enjoyed that game?
No, not at all.
See, I think that's the biggest takeaway part is that I'm kind of a nerd who is really into violence and stuff, and there's just a lot of combat and violence that I really enjoyed in that game. And plus, I don't think I was as attached to Joel and Ellie as a lot of other characters, as a lot of other people were. They were around those characters. They replayed that game many times. They were around them for years and stuff. And the first time I played it was in 2020. I played The Last of Us Part 1 in 2020. And so maybe I don't have that kind of attachment. So that's why I enjoyed the game a little bit more than others. But it's because when was the first time you played The Last of Us Part 1?
It was not that long ago. I think it was in 2020 myself. Maybe it was end of 2019. It was definitely not. Yeah, it was definitely not.
You were pretty fresh too.
Yeah, honestly. I knew what the story was, but I didn't play it myself. So I wanted to really dive in and experience what everyone else experienced.
Yeah,
and it was definitely really good. I really did enjoy the first one, even though ladder simulator. But still, it was fun. And I actually thought the ladder simulator part of the second game was kind of hilarious. But yeah, for those of you that don't want spoilers, again, the whole beginning of this video is spoiler free, and we will let you know when the spoilers begin. Right now, no, I'm kidding. But
guess what?
Guess what, bitch? No, but we just want to let everyone know that is going to be this beginning part is going to be spoiler free. So, the way that the game made me feel, honestly, I loved the first half of the game. I really did.
Hurt you?
The part of the game that really started feeling like a slog was the second half. And again, I feel like being specific falls into spoilery territory. So I don't want to be super specific.
To me, the game definitely feels like it drags on.
It definitely does. Yeah. There's definite parts that drag on. I definitely enjoyed the combat of the game. Some of the puzzles were really fun. A specific puzzle that I remember, it absolutely duping me, and it I can't believe it duped me for so long. And this is not spoilery, but there's just a part where you have to throw a cable over a telephone pole and swing across from one side of a building to another. That took me way too long to figure out, because for some reason I thought that you had to go outside and throw the cable instead of just throwing it over from inside the building, because it didn't feel like that would work, but it did. So it just took me a lot longer to get that one point, and that was one of the puzzles that I felt like incredibly foolish that I couldn't solve super quickly. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, you know what? It definitely like made me think outside of the box, and not every part of that game does that. A lot of that game, you literally is just like lie down in the grass, wait for someone to walk by. And another thing about the game that I truly did enjoy is there are so many parts of the game where they do not force you into combat. You can walk by a ton of the enemies. You can just like crouch, be sneaky. Like when it comes down to like wanting to be like a completionist or wanting to get a whole bunch of like extra ammo or like materials and stuff like that, that's when you will jump at that opportunity. But if you're like really stacked and you really don't feel the need to, or you just really are struggling in an area, they don't force you to kill like everybody at every time, like every point.
There are a couple of Cheez-It moments indeed, and like I said, the rope puzzles, like there's a few of them. There's some rope gameplay. There's a lot of rope gameplay. The rope physics, I was actually like really surprised by the rope physics. I thought they were fantastic with like just at any point, like you could do them in a couple different ways. I noticed is that like there was just the rope is just so fluid, and it's like the only rope in a game that I've actually seen that like acts like actual rope, and the game's got really interesting physics. My top thing of the world, like just to mess around with, was glass. That's my favorite thing to do. I broke every piece of glass I possibly could break, just butting the glass with a knife or a gun. It was just my favorite thing to do because I just love the glass breaking. It was really freaking neat, and could be going for more of that. Definitely. But the stealth and whatnot, I didn't really dabble too much in the stealth, but it was really interesting. It's just more the Last of Us combat, really. I wasn't too like surprised or taken back by it. Like it wasn't mechanically like surprising or like anything too great to like write home about, but it's more of the Last of Us 1 combat with a couple new enemies and new guns and stuff like that. But it was very graphic, like blowing limbs off and stuff like that, and a lot of that was very graphic, which I really enjoyed. And fighting enemies, it made them feel like they were a part of the world. Like it's not like Ellie's world or Abby's world and people are just like revolving around her. It's like these characters have their own lives. They're friends with each other. They have boyfriends or girlfriends that they're talking about and stuff like that. And if they see like one of their compatriots get murdered in the fucking face by Ellie with a like shovel, like they yell out, they're like, "Lisa, no!" And they're like hurt by that, you know. And I like that. There's a couple moments by that. It's like a small little thing they add, but I really like that aspect of it.
Yes, I think that the world building was like almost perfection in this game. There's a lot of parts of the game that really make you believe you're in situations where you're like really, you're not just like killing random like, you know, NPC 1, NPC 2, you know, you're actually like you're choosing to kill like people. And I feel like one part of the game is that they don't really give you too many consequences for doing that, which I feel like that would have been something that like would have been a little bit cooler. They do the whole like shout out where it's like, "No, Lisa," or whatever, and it definitely brings that part to life because that would make sense. But I feel like if it was like more punishing to where like if you killed someone and it was like a friend of theirs, they would get like, I don't know, like enraged and like just like try and pin you to the ground, because like that would be a little bit more believable. Because like, let's be honest, like if someone like shotgunned like my friend, I wouldn't be like, "No, John, all right, let me just go like back to my rounds." Like, like
must have been the win.
Yeah, this isn't fucking Skyrim. But yeah, like that's one thing about the game that I did enjoy, but I felt like it wasn't punishing enough. But the one thing that like will never be easy, like no matter what game I play, and especially in this game, is like having to kill the dogs. Nothing like was harder for me than like having to kill the dogs. I tried so hard to just avoid the dogs because I just hate doing it.
Yeah, it's something that I don't ever want to do. You know, dogs are pure. We don't deserve dogs. Dogs are amazing. I'll reiterate that for the rest of my life. So there's that, of course, which really sucks. So don't kill any dogs in real life either, guys. You know, learn from that.
Yeah,
So,
don't do that. Dogs are great.
respect that opinion. But yeah, the world building, it doesn't feel like it's a closed set either. So it, like when you're in this game, like it doesn't feel like you're being set on a pathway with walls that are too high that you can't see over, with just some wallpaper of like buildings and stuff like that. Everything looks like it's can be explorable, and if you can't explore it, there's an actual reason for that over like Apocalypse Decay. But it's a really pretty game. The photo mode's pretty banging as well. There's one like slight little like problem I had is with, I wish the character, like whoever you were playing as, I wish they were a little more photogenic. Like a lot of time they'd be making stupid fucking faces, and I just couldn't get a good photo because they're fucking stupid melon face. They're just making a really dumb face. Like other games like Horizon Zero Dawn, pretty good photo mode. Like even Last of Us 1, like I had some good photo mode stuff, and it's just Last of Us Part 2, I would just constantly catch them making dumb faces, and I'm like, well, this photo is ruined because your dumb face.
I feel like a game that had a fantastic photo mode was God of War. Because in God of War, you could, like, change their facial features. Like, of course, there's, like, the whole goofy side where it's like, you can make them smile at any moment. But I feel like the potential is, like, amazing. Because you can change, like, what the characters are feeling in that moment, like, in the photo mode. And that's kind of what photo mode is. Like, you can either take a picture of the environment, or you could, like, take a picture of...
Because she's bored exploring the auto repair shop in Seattle,
Yeah. Yeah, but, that definitely is an issue on that.
Yeah, a lot of people are also not big on the story and whatnot. That a lot of people think that they were misled in trailers and advertising as well. Which is, there's one thing I'll say is, like, I'm not too happy about how the story unfolded, but, like, I accepted it pretty quick as well. I don't know, like, I don't want it to go too far into it. You can't really go too far into it because, like, there's just big things that happen really early on. So
yeah, like, the spoiler territory starts, like, almost immediately. Yeah.
That's where it's, like, groundbreaking. But, like, it's a very sad, like, kind of revenge story, and it's interesting, and sometimes characters, like, act the way, like, they act a certain way that they shouldn't act, and it's just convenient for the plot,
Yeah, that's something that I had a personal issue with, is that when it came to this game, there was, like, a lot of emotion in the characters' faces, but not a lot of logic to characters' actions. And that was, like, something that really, like, messes with the whole experience. But I'm glad that you specifically said revenge story. And we'll remember that, all of you. Remember all of that. Yeah, remember that, because we'll get into that more a little bit later. But the game itself has a lot of emotion, and it's good, but it's also bad, because I feel like at times it also tries to manipulate your emotions to make you feel a certain way, because they're trying to, like, further the plot. It's not like...
which is okay, but they're not subtle about it, so it comes off as, like, too just blunt.
Yeah, it's super blunt, and when it's, like, ridiculously in your face about it, there's a lot of times where instead of me sitting there saying, whoa, what just happened was heavy, it's directly in my face, and I'm like, okay,
it's
I get it.
Me,
yeah,
like, hey, isn't that part really heavy?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it is. I guess we'll move on. Like, it doesn't... Sometimes those moments are better when they're more subtle, because you get to experience it yourself, rather than the game being like, hey, did you see that? Did you see this happen? And I'm like, I did, yes, I did.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, the combat's good. It is a gameplay-wise, like, it's a fun game. Like fun action adventure game with really interesting characters, which is one thing I was really surprised by, how attached to these brand new characters that I got. And it felt like there was quite a bit of them as well, that there was fast character development, and I got attached to these characters really fast, and I enjoyed them, like, for the most part as well. Like, I enjoyed what I was seeing. I thought most of them were likable characters to a certain extent, and I just was really surprised, but, like, there were so many new people on screen on this sequel, and how fast I cared about these people as well. They did a really good job with that, in my opinion. I don't know how you felt about, like, all the new people that they introduced.
Some of the new characters I thought were really good. some of the new characters I thought didn't get enough screen time, but I feel like that is because of how they were used in the story. And again, I can't go very far into detail without like spoilery stuff. But I did like most of the characters. I did. I just felt like there was some characters that were added like strictly for like plot moments, or strictly for those exact moments we were just talking about, really, where it's like this person is in the game so that it can be shoved in your face later, and it's just like, please don't do that. Like, and it's one thing if it happens like one time and it's like one moment where I'm like, okay, it was kind of like directly in my face, but I feel like there's quite a few moments where they do that in this game, and it's just like, don't do that. Don't like shove stuff in the player's face, because at that point you're not allowing the player to like feel. You're telling the player how to feel, and like that's not how like reacting to the story should be. You should be able to react like however you would normally react, not how like the creators are like, we want you to feel this way, so we're gonna push it in a specific way, so we force you to feel that way.
Yeah, no audience should be treated like they're idiots, and that happens a lot of time, and it backfires, I think.
Yes, it absolutely will backfire. And like I said, I'm definitely more critical in this situation because it happens so many times. Like I said, if it happens like one time or whatever, sometimes they can get away with it because it's like a big moment and you're like, okay, well, this was like a huge moment of the game and it was kind of in your face, but there was a reason behind it, and I guess I'll let it slide. But too many times, and again, it just like, it's too much. It's like a sensory overload.
Yeah. But should we dive into spoilery stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a perfect segue into the spoiler section. So for those of you guys that do not want spoilers and have not played Last of Us 2, definitely there's gonna be some kind of a prompt. The biggest part that upset me about this game, and you said it yourself, is this is a revenge story that does not end in revenge.
Yes,
that is
there's
the
no
biggest
satisfaction.
thing. That is the biggest thing
no
that upsets me.
Reason.
That is the biggest thing that upsets me. And I know that like that's part of their whole like grand design, and I'm putting that in air quotes because there's a lot of people who do enjoy this game.
What were they even trying to fucking do with it? It was like she learns her lesson, you know.
That's exactly
and
the whole thing. Is it's like she learns to forgive, and like the reason why she learns to forgive at the end of the game is because while she's about to kill Abby, all of a sudden like she's able to forgive Joel. So because she can forgive Joel, now she's forgiving Abby, and it's just like, do you realize that you gave up everything for this?
People died for that.
Yeah, there's so many people that literally gave their lives for this conquest.
Tommy gave up his relationship, you know. Yeah. They got a divorce. Ellie gave up to go back and to give up. She gave up what she had too, you know.
She gave up everything.
Yeah, it's just like there's no payback to it at all. It's just a really fucking shitty ending too. And I did not like the ending, how it ended. Like, if Joel has to die in the story, okay, then fine. He has to die, and then Ellie has to get her revenge. But at least get the fucking revenge, man. Like, there's no point to fucking killing him. There's literally no point.
The whole point, and this is the thing that upsets me the most, and we're gonna go into a small tangent in a second, and this is gonna be like Apex fixes Last of Us, and like take that however you will.
He's gonna put on his Bob the Builder helmet, and he's gonna go to construction mode now.
Absolutely. But the whole thing about him dying was only to show you how much Abby hated Joel. That was it. It was all just to hammer in, like, Abby hates Joel to this degree. And you're like, but why? And then, like, the beginning, where you learn what happens with her, I thought was perfect. Her backstory, perfect. Sometimes it was a little slow, but it was perfectly fine. And that leads into the part of the game where I just completely dropped off. Where you're playing as Ellie, and then you, like, learn some of the backstory for Abby, perfectly fine. But then when you start playing as Abby, and it's like, now it's 4 days ago, and you have to do this all again,
And I've already, at that point, I'm like, check out.
Yeah, exactly. Immediately, I am checked out because I'm like, I do not want to do this all again. What you should be doing is you should be showing, like, again, like, small clips or small sections of what, like, Abby has had to go through to get there so that it feels more natural. Having to pretty much, like, choose between two characters when, again, you already have characters that you love so much, which those characters are like Joel
and Ellie.
It's not fair
to Abby and her gang of like people. I mean, like, it's great that they try to show like they're human too. They've got humanity, they've got lives, they've got relationships, they've got people that they love, and they've got people that love them. But like, it's still it can't compare to Joel and Ellie. Like, you can't compare it, and it's just really unfair to put these people on the screen and try to like increase their self-worth to where you slightly feel maybe Abby was justified. It's just not going to happen. And it's just like, it's almost insulting to think like why would you try to put like Ellie in my corner? Why would you try to think that I would be in Abby's corner right now when she killed Joel, the main character of the first game that we fucking love so much? The reason why we bought The Last of Us 2 is because he's the main reason why we enjoyed The Last of Us 1, you know? Like, why? It's just ridiculous, and it's baffling that Naughty Dog would be like, and I had an idea of like maybe The Last of Us 2 should have been focused on Abby, you know, and her group of people. So it's like then the third one, then they kind of crash into each other. I feel like
if they would have had like a prequel or something like that between like 1 and 2, where they could have shown like events that led up to the end of Last of Us,
it would have made it
would have been way better, because then you would have had two characters that you know a whole bunch about, and you guys can argue, well, of course it wouldn't sell well because it's not about Ellie and it's not about Joel. Correct. But you know what? That's also what the game was marketed as. It was marketed as the continuation of, like, Ellie and Joel. And guess what? Joel's dead in the first fucking hour. So, the whole thing where they're saying you're gonna, like, have these relationships and you're gonna continue, you know, that story, you only get to really experience a few moments. And I will say, one of my favorite parts of the game is the part where they go into the museum and Ellie and Joel are there for her birthday. That is probably one of my favorite parts of the game, because you really get to, like, feel that feeling again, that, like, the whole, like, father-daughter, they really care about each other, they're still going out on adventures. That's the one moment of the game that you really get that feeling. And it's a fantastic, like, throwback to the first game, and it's really, really good. So now, I want to talk about the whole Apex fixes Last of Us 2.
Okay.
This is something that I thought a lot about, and when it comes right down to it, I completely agree with Naughty Dog that Joel had to die. I completely agree with it, because Joel, like, fucked humanity. He really did.
Yeah.
He fucked humanity, and the whole like thing that now there's no one that can like take the cure and like use it like on a massive scale to save everyone. That's like, it really is like, it's too far. There's no like forgiving that. And like the whole thing where Ellie is talking about how she was supposed to have a purpose and stuff like that. She's absolutely right. Albeit for more of a selfish reason, because it's more along the lines of like her wanting to feel important, and that's another issue with the game itself, is she's like quarreling with herself at feeling important because she's not good enough, because
she's a teenager as well, like, you know, she's going through a lot and it's hard, you know.
Yeah. But the whole thing about fixing the game, like I said, I think that every single character that was in the game could have still been in the game. But the way the game could have been fixed was, instead of having Joel die at the very beginning, have Joel die at the end. And the way that he would die is he would protect Ellie from Abby. Abby would kill him, and the way that she would kill him would be probably some kind of throwback to how he killed her father. Because the way I could have foreseen this, there's a part in the game, and this is like very, like, it happens super quick and they never talk about it again. There's a part near the end of the game where they talk about the fireflies, how there are still surviving fireflies, and then you never go back there again because, like, they get, like, captured by the pirates.
Yeah.
That thing could have been at the beginning of the game. That could have been the very beginning where Joel and Ellie could have found out about, like, one final firefly-like stronghold, and you could have still gone back, and you could have played as Abby, learning her story, who she was, how Joel killed her father, and again, kept her in the Wolves, and could have shown her climbing the ranks of the Wolves to become the leader of the Wolves. Now, I know that at the beginning of the game, she doesn't seem like much of, like, a leader, but she definitely becomes that through the game. She definitely does.
Yeah.
She's built, she's very strong, she could easily do that. So the way that I see it is she could have become the leader of the Wolves. There could have been that transmission that Ellie and Joel would have picked up about the final Firefly stronghold. Then Abby could have picked it up as well, realized that they are probably going to take this seriously and go to this stronghold, and the game would have once again been very similar, where you go through these scenarios where Ellie and Joel have to, like, fight through different obstacles. You could have changed some gameplay elements. You could have done very similar things to what the game currently had. You could have had Abby's, like, forces hunting them, and the whole, like, scars thing, that could have also been in the game as well, albeit not the way that it happened.
It'd be a very different game for sure.
Yeah, it would have been a very different game, and
But
by
I feel
the
like
time
it would mean a lot more too.
yeah, by the
Like,
time the game was at the end, you would have played a little bit as Abby, because you, like, would have played as, like, trying to hunt them down, and then, like, the people that ended up dying through, like, the normal progression of the game could have, like, been people that, like, went after Joel and Ellie to try and help them, and then, like, they stayed behind because the wolves were attacking or whatever, and then through Abby's story, you'd be killing the people that you like through Ellie's story. So
Yeah.
right there, you're already, like, having, like, difficulty, like, coping, because now you're killing people that you're supposed to like. But it's in a different way. It's not the fact that you've already killed these people as Ellie, and now you gotta, like, go and watch them die again. It's not like that. It's that these people are important. You want to see this, like, final mission succeed because, like, Ellie and all of her friends now have a purpose again where they're trying to save humanity, because, big surprise, that's not even part of the fucking game anymore. So, like, that's another huge, like, plot hole, is, like, they've just completely forgotten that, like, there is, like, this huge problem, and it's now, like, people versus people, like, the whole, like, virus and this whole sickness doesn't exist anymore. And I know there's going to be a lot of you that are saying, well, of course, like, they've moved beyond that because there is no cure. But that's the whole thing, is that if there are still fireflies, there is still hope. And I'm using that in quotation marks, because that's what the fireflies resemble and stand for, is hope. The entire first game is them doing whatever it takes to cure the virus. That is literally what they are. So that's why if they were still alive, which, big surprise, they actually are, but again, they completely skip over it in the second game, and they put them in as a major plot point again, and again, with Abby being a former Firefly, she's now having quarrels with herself, because she's not only hunting the person that killed her father, but she's also, like, probably moving towards, like, a corrupt state of mind, where she no longer can become what she wanted to be, like, earlier in her life. It's like, it's a moment where she can no longer be that person. She cannot be the Abby that she used to be. And when you see character development like that, that's when you truly feel for characters. That's when you see, like, a good bad guy. You're like, that bad guy was so good, because you truly know where they came from.
That's the turning point.
Exactly. Yeah, you know that there's no way of going back. There's a point of no return. And again, at the end of the game, in my version, there's, like, there's a moment that Joel has to make a sacrifice, and Ellie doesn't want him to, but, like, Joel and Ellie have this moment, and he tells her that he made the decision that he thought was correct, but at the same time, this is the only way to truly make up for what he's done. He would do it again, just like he said in the actual game. He would do it again over and over because he loves her. But through his love for her, he also wants to save her from this threat. And at the end of the game, Abby kills him, and Ellie is able to, like, get into the Firefly stronghold, and then they, like, get away. And, like, the whole game is just about that. And once she gets into, like, this stronghold and they're able to escape, guess what, boys and girls? Hope is back. And then the third game is all about, once again, solving the crisis of the virus. And there you go. That's how I would fix the game.
That's really interesting. I like that. I like that quite a bit, to see that, like, I like how for a lot of that, like, I feel like it gives Abby a lot more of a chance, you know, to win over players and viewers and just fans of the game series, you know, like, it gives her more of a chance to be, I guess, respected and not just constantly mocked, you know, because, like, in that game, like, she's kind of justified to wanting to fucking murder Joel, you know, based off, like, what happened, so, and it kind of sucks that, like, she gets hated on, you know, with almost a villain mindset towards the beginning, you know, like, they kind of, like, everyone thinks, like, oh, she's an obvious villain, you know, like, fucking murdering Joel, you know,
but who wouldn't want to murder someone if they murdered your father or your parent? Like, of course you would want that. But again, they don't bring that part into the story early enough. Nope. All you see is him die, and once he dies, Ellie is just, like, screaming. And then, like, all of a sudden, the pacing changes, and it's now this revenge story. It's a revenge story that's all about, now I just need to kill another person. It's all about, like, I just gotta kill more, I just gotta kill more, I just gotta kill more. And for those of you, again, that are arguing, that's the point of her, like, and when I mean her, I mean Ellie's final moment in the game where she lets them go.
Her growth. Apparently.
Yeah, her growth. I feel like that is not who Ellie is. I feel like that's not who she is, and going to a point where that's not who people are. The moment of the game where you're playing as Abby, and then the two kids are with you, and then you help them escape, and then you leave, and then you're with, like, with Owen on the boat, and then all of a sudden you, like, have a nightmare, and you're like, I need to go back and save these kids. Absolutely not. That is absolutely not Abby's character at all. She hates these people. She has killed hundreds of these people. It doesn't matter if they are children. It doesn't matter at all.
She's a monster. Children. Like, she's a monster. You saw how bad she was at the end of the game when, like, she was fighting with Dina, like, or Ellie's like, she's pregnant, and she's like, good. I'm like, she's a fucking monster.
Yeah, that's not how she would have actually reacted in that situation. It doesn't matter what kind of dream she had. It doesn't matter if she was guilty or not. She would never have done that because that's just not her character. It's a complete 180 to, like, what we were led to believe her character to be. She is a soldier. She is hard. She is strong. She is able to make those tough decisions. But now all of a sudden she's not able to do that and she has to save these people? No. Technically, when it comes down to even the argument of she owes them, she already paid them back because everyone escaped. Like, when that moment happens where she's strung up and the kids save her, technically, she saves them just as much as they save her. And there you go. That debt is paid. We're moving on. But that's not how it plays out in the game, and it's just completely unbelievable. Now, I don't want to get into this too much because this will actually upset me. Because this is the part of the game that literally pushed me over the edge. When you are playing as Abby, and you have to work your fucking ass off to get into the goddamn hospital so you can get medicine and stuff for the sick sister, and she fucking dies anyway, that is such a slap in the face moment.
Yeah, I thought it was really ridiculous too, of just, like, immediately how the little kid's like, I'm gonna run home. I'm gonna take a boat and go home, like, out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, out of nowhere, this person, and like
wait, nice filler. Thank you. Nice.
Yeah, decisions that don't sound like themselves. The only person that makes the decision that, like, through, like, 99% of the game that is themselves is Ellie, because it's all about revenge, no matter what the cost. Whoever gets hurt, it doesn't
Very
matter.
selfish, you know?
Yeah,
She's
very selfish. She's trying to, like, get this revenge because it's all she needs. She has to pay this person back for killing Joel, and she sacrifices everything to do it, and at the end of the game, she just doesn't do it. Like, all of a sudden, she just changes. And I will definitely agree that when you get to a certain point of, like, killing so many people, there is a moment where you have to look inside yourself, but that is only when there's, like, a lull in that kind of story. And this is nothing but rampage and nothing but killing, murder, and, like, there's no emotion behind it. There's nothing. Like, the moment where Ellie gets grabbed by the pirates, and they were like, oh, we're gonna take her to, like, the camp or whatever, which is, like, the last part of the game, and Ellie pretty much, like, pushes the guy into the
zombie.
The zombie, the walker, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, pushes him into it, and then, like, shoots the guy in the leg, and then he's like, oh, I'll give you what you want, I'll tell you where Abby is. And then, like, the moment that he tells her, and then she just, like, blows him away anyways, that just shows that she has zero remorse for anything anymore. Nothing. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with whoever it is. They don't matter anymore. She is just a monster at this point.
The characters get quite jaded to where, like, it almost can appreciate it because it's like, it seems like she's slowly turning on Abby's mindset, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, their mindsets are becoming very similar. So when you get to the end of the game, and there is that moment where it's like, this is the big payoff. It's like, why would you stop? It literally makes no sense. You just feel bad, just like when Abby feels bad and all of a sudden wants to go back and help the kids. It's exactly the same kind of moment where you're like, why? Just kill them. And let's not even talk about the point that and this is hilarious because there's so many points in this game where if you did nothing, the outcome would be exactly the fucking same. But still, when it comes down to you leaving the house, when you're playing as Ellie, to go hunt down Abby the final time, you literally did not need to leave. She would have been up on that crucifix, and she would have just died there. Because literally, she would have sat there, it would have played out the exact same way, and if Ellie would have been able to forgive her and move on, like, at that moment where, you know, like, I would say about 75% through the game, where the whole, like, she's pregnant, and she's like, good, and then she spares her, that should have been the moment. That should have been the fucking moment where it's like, it's not worth it anymore. There are things that are still, like, I still hold dear, so I'm not gonna, like, I'm not gonna let that consume me. So by her making the choice to be consumed by it, and then immediately retconning their own decision in the game, it just blows my mind.
There's a lot of that in the game to where it's just like, you think, why? Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, and that's the part that really gets me. Like, there are points that I feel like that was a really smart decision, you know, that's really big and, like, deep of them, but that could be just me just, like, manifesting that in my own mind, you know, to where, like, oh, I really enjoy, like, the here's Ellie's point of view, you grow to enjoy that, you grow to understand it, and you grow to, like, understand, well, how she justifies it, and the vice versa with Abby, you grow to like her, you grow to understand her point of view, and the overall arc of the Last of Us, the last of, like, their humanity, of, like, look what this world has done to these people, and look how they treat others, and think how little of each other, and how just disgusting they are, you know, it's just foul, and the world is just filthy, you know. I appreciate certain parts of that, but again, like, that just, like, how could they make decisions like that before, and then somehow have that over, like, arcing story in the same mind? I don't see that, but it's something that I like to think about, and it's something that I appreciate about the game, either if it's on purpose or not, but that's just a part that I really like.
Yeah, I mean, there are great parts of the game. We both agree with that. And again, for those of you that are, like, watching and have a difference of opinion, we want to hear like those opinions. We want to know like maybe there's a part of my fix it plan that doesn't work out very well. So like leave that in the comments if you think that there's something wrong with it. I would love to like have like a little bit more of an outside point of view for something like that. But I just genuinely feel like a game that would have ended the way that I said would have hit all the marks, and then people would have loved it, because yes, you would have still had the heartbreak of like Joel dying, but there's a big reason behind it now. And then maybe in like The Last of Us 3, it's now like Abby hunting Ellie, and they're trying to like find this cure, and maybe by the end of Last of Us 3, holy shit, I'm writing 2 games now. Pay me, Naughty Dog.
Hold on.
Like maybe by the end of fucking Last of Us 3, they would be able to like share common ground and be like, maybe for the good of like humankind, for the species, we need to put this behind us. And like maybe Abby will become like the person that you never expected to like be a hero, because in Last of Us 2 she would be nothing but a villain and you would hate her for it. But then maybe in 3 she would show that through her hardships, maybe it's not worth it. And that would be a great ending to like a trilogy.
Yeah. For sure. It's very weird, like, and there's just like so many possibilities that like almost you could think of like endless possibilities of just different ways to think that like be able to appreciate this more, and just be, you know, to reach that satisfaction that everyone wanted to be able to like get that so great narrative that everyone thought that they were going to get based off of what they received from Last of Us Part 1. But do you got anything more? Got anything more to say about this?
No, I mean, I feel like that is definitely it for like the spoilery section. We definitely,
for sure,
we're talking a lot about it. So for those of you that are joining in now, because this is probably the point that he's going to put something in where you can jump in past the spoilers, the game was enjoyable at many different points. There's a lot of things I would have changed, and personally, I feel like they put a lot of effort into the game, because like there's no way you can argue that effort wasn't put in. Like the game looks amazing. There's a lot of parts of the game that really do make you feel for characters. So like it's great in that aspect. It's just the way that they had the story gone. I feel like that just could have gone in a different way and would have been way more like successful in the way that people were expecting. So that's just kind of the way I view it. But what about you, John?
Yeah, like I feel like it's a very like good game. Like it's built, you know, with the perfect building blocks that you need, like good combat, you know, good characters, good voice acting, good music, you know. It's just like good level design, and it's just like it's such a heavy narrative game to where those are really shadowed, you know, by these plot holes and inconsistencies by characters that don't make a lot of sense, which is really unfortunate too. But I like to shine lights on those things before. I think that's why I think we did a really good job in talking about those earlier, you know, like we want to definitely say like, hey, they did a great job with that, but it's just I don't know what they were doing. Like they wanted to tell that story, that's great, but they have to expect that kind of feedback and that kind of like the response from people, you know, with these beloved characters, and be like, this doesn't make sense. Like, we're going to call you out on it if it doesn't make sense and whatnot. We're not just going to follow blindly. Like, these characters do this for this reason. And so they had to expect some kind of response like that. And I would say that not all of that, like, negative feedback or flack is not justified, because it definitely is. It definitely is.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. I feel that almost every single person that has like ridiculous like the outcry, I guess the better way to put it is the outcry of like how this game was not what anyone like was expecting, is completely understandable, because it's not. It is absolutely not the game anyone thought we were going to be getting. Whether you loved the game, whether you hated the game, you were not expecting the game that you got. And I guess that's kind of what Naughty Dog was trying to put out there. So if that was what they were trying to do, bravo. I still feel like it was flawed in the long run. But if that was what you were trying to make, then bravo. So John, the final moment, what would you give this game out of 10?
Shit, a 6 out of 10.
Honestly,
as just really quickly to defend that, like I said earlier, it had the perfect building blocks, but what it was trying to achieve by by presenting itself as a heavy narrative game. And I feel like those plot holes and inconsistencies of characters really knock some blocks off and some points off for that. So that's why I give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay. I think that's a very fair judgment of the game, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. As you said, building blocks were there. Great graphics. Great voice acting. The gameplay was solid, albeit what that game is. And for me, because I was so disappointed with the game, I feel like I would personally give the game a 5 out of 10, and my reasoning behind that is in the spoilery section of the game. And it really just is not what you feel like Last of Us is. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't, like, urge you to play more, because, like, at that point, you're like, this is not what I thought this was, so of course you want to play more. But it just doesn't end where you expect it to, and it just doesn't leave you, and when I say you, I mean, like, me as a player, where I feel like the story was trying to get to, and that's why I would give it a 5 out of 10. But give us your own ratings. Let us know what you thought about this. Sorry this video was incredibly long, but there was a lot to talk about because, as John said earlier, this is a very controversial game with very controversial topics because of so many parts being different than what we were promised. So guys, thanks for watching. This was a fantastic moment that I was able to share with you, John, and like us together to share with you guys, and hopefully you enjoyed this little talk. So John, any final thoughts?
No, that's about it. I think you did a really good job, and I could say as a official Foundry review, can we settle on 5.5? Can we?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Official Foundry score is a 5.5, and there you go. And we'll see you guys later in the next video. Bye, everyone.
See ya.